Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP discovered his girlfriend's infidelity with her art gallery manager, shattered her trust and dreams. Confronting them publicly led to her dismissal and the end of her relationship. Despite this, he reflects on the importance of meaningful relationships and regrets not having a chance to discuss this with her. The experience profoundly impacted both your personal and professional paths. Now let's get into the story. I was about to propose to my girlfriend. We met 3 years prior, in the first pottery class of our freshman year at the Institute of Art. Sitting beside each other, as we sculpted pots, we had real conversations that became something I looked forward to. As it turned out, both our parents tried to discourage us from going to college as art majors. They didn't see it as a career with stability, but I knew this was because they were from a different time. My father was taught to work hard in physical labor, and my mother was taught to be a faithful housekeeping wife and mother. My girlfriend's parents were extremely similar, so we joked around about getting them together. I really did imagine her parents meeting mine, and then us getting married. After our 3rd anniversary, I planned to propose before we graduated. I believe there was a reason we met at art school, despite both our parents' discouragement. We were meant to be artists together. In our 2nd year of college, my girlfriend and I put together a website to sell our creative pieces. We came up with a creative name that included our initials. This was an inspiring thing to do together, to boost our confidence, portfolios, and cooperation skills. I had no idea how short-lived her participation would be. With a proposal on my mind, but not quite on my lips, I went to surprise my girlfriend with lunch one day. She had an internship at an art gallery on 3rd Street. As I walked down the wide corridor toward the back room, I noticed 2 people passionately kissing through partially open blinds. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was my girlfriend. She was in the office of Mr. Potts, the art gallery manager. Instantly, my whole world crashed down. I felt like I'd wasted prime years of my life, chasing a pointless career with a heartless, lying woman. Shocked and hurt, I threw open the door and yelled for them to stop. They were disheveled and shocked. AP must have been at least 15 years older than me. He looked extremely embarrassed and said, "I'm sorry, son." As soon as he realized this was my girlfriend, I yelled at her, asking what she was doing, kissing this man. She was quiet, wiping her mouth, when she tried to grab my arm and lead me away. There were several people, including gallery visitors and art critics, gathering outside the office, listening and watching. I refused to go quietly after I started piecing things together. While she tried to pull me down the hall, I announced loudly that she was making out with him because he was the one responsible for promoting artists. She threw my arm down and asked why I was there. I held up the lunch bag and loudly said I was bringing her lunch when I called her cheating on me. The crowd was shocked and started to give us space. Mr. Potts' blinds were fully shut now, with the door locked. She whispered, saying she didn't cheat. She only slept with him to boost her career, so it didn't count as cheating. I was speechless. I was so surprised she was being serious. She didn't think sleeping with this man in exchange for personal gain was cheating. I asked her what she thought it was, and she said nothing, thereby expecting me to forgive her and maintain our relationship. She said all she had to do was show him her breasts, then he did the rest. I called her crazy and dumped her. My exact words were, "I won't marry someone like you." I immediately went to the receptionist. I demanded to see or speak with the man in charge of Mr. Potts. The head of the gallery, Mr. Espit, came downstairs to meet with me. The same crowd from earlier was standing with me, as if to support and back up my claims, but I think they just enjoyed the unfolding drama. My girlfriend and the art gallery manager were dramatically fired in front of at least 13 people who cheered when Mr. Espit gave the word. Within 30 awkward minutes, my girlfriend lost her potential husband and internship. She cried in front of everyone and left. That was the last time I saw her, but I heard she failed to graduate the same year I did. Probably because she was too embarrassed to submit any art into the gallery and lost her inspiration. Her art and initials are no longer part of my website, which is still thriving to this day. Sometimes I wish I would have gotten the chance to talk to her about how meaningful sexual relations are. Our bodies are meant to be sacred, and who we sleep with is a pretty big indicator of where our life leads. Today's second story. Now let's get into the story. My wife, 35 female, and I, 37 male, were together for 12 years. She was a teacher at our town's high school, which I probably shouldn't name. She was a teacher there for 8 years before this happened. We talked about having kids, but she always said she felt like her students were the only children she could handle. There were families whose children she taught and helped graduate high school. A lot of these kids would become independent, dependent, working adult in the area, armed with the knowledge they learned from her. At school parties or meetings, graduates would often attend with their younger siblings and parents to thank their teachers and update them on their life. This is what happened, often for my wife, and she was always so proud. I was there the night that one of her former male students, who was in his early 20s, returned to thank her and chat about the career path he chose. She was beaming as she spoke to him. More than any other time I'd witnessed her talking to someone. The only other time I saw her beam like that was on our wedding day. I chalked it up to her passion as a teacher and knowing she improved her students' life. So life continued on as it always does, and everything was going great between us and in our careers. We were cuddling on the couch one night when we started to make out and I pulled off her shirt. As I kissed down her neck, I immediately noticed a hickey on her chest. It completely threw me off. I hesitated but stayed quiet. I decided to act like I didn't see anything. I'm pretty sure it was shock and denial that prevented me from telling her what I saw. Later, long after she fell asleep, I laid awake overthinking about the hickey. Eventually, I just got out of bed, grabbed her keys, and went a snoop in her car. I put my hands everywhere, feeling for anything weird. I checked a few receipts, but they were innocent enough. The trash wasn't suspicious either. I stuck my hand in the backseat pockets and found, to my dismay, an empty condom wrapper. I was completely numb, and I could only think of hiring a pie. I wouldn't be able to take off work to follow her, and she'd spot me or my car from a mile away. I didn't want her to know I knew anything, otherwise she might get extra sneaky. So I took some money from my savings and hired a pie. I told him everything he needed to know, and he went to work. I couldn't help but call my parents to tell them what was going on. They basically told me they always thought she was capable of cheating. I was shocked. I asked them why they didn't bother telling me, and they said they wanted to let me make my own choice. My mom thought they were just being picky parents, but she could see now that their hunch was worth mentioning. The pie followed her for 4 weeks, undetected. He took several photos of them together kissing, shopping, seeing a play, entering and leaving a hotel room, always hand in hand. The worst pictures were of them in the back seat of my wife's car parked in the school parking lot. I was sick to my stomach when I realized that AP was just a boy, the very same boy my wife used to teach just 2 years ago. I was so upset. While my wife was teaching in her classroom the next morning, I took the evidence to the principal with the request that my wife be fired. He held an impromptu meeting right then and there, calling the higher UPS on video call. It took less than an hour for everyone to agree that this was a violation of the teacher's conduct and ethical rules. She violated school policy by engaging in intimate relations with a former student. As a result, the principal and I went to pull her out of the classroom to break the news to her that she was bus arrested for sleeping with her former student. She was mortified, grabbing her mouth and her side. She started sobbing as the principal told her she was officially on leave until a decision could be made regarding her employment. I was so pleased to see her suffering. This was all her fault. It was just a short time later that the decision was made to fire her. She got the news right after she moved out of my house into a previous coworker's. Weeks after that, she was served the divorce papers. Although by now, she knew they were coming, she basically accepted that her life was ruined, over and done with. I soon found out that this young man my wife cheated on me with was a newlywed. His wife was just 19 years old. It was pretty easy to find her email address on social media, so I sent her a little present, that being the proof that her husband was already cheating on her. My ex and him both only thought of themselves and made very, very bad decisions that led to life-altering consequences. I am happy to report that since this AP and my ex have both had to start a new life far away, my wife had trouble getting a job here. Since news spreads fast, I'm doing my best to move on from what happened and am taking it one day at a time. Today's third story. In this story, a 44-year-old man met his 37-year-old wife online from a foreign country. Impressed by her beauty, independence, and homemaking skills, he married her and helped her adjust to life in the US. However, he discovered she was cheating with their gardener through security camera footage. He confronted her, and she left the country. He filed for an annulment, feeling deceived by her actions. Now let's get into the story. I, 44 male, met my wife, 37 female, online. She was from a foreign country, always very curious about the US. I just thought her excitement was adorable. I knew she would jump at the opportunity to live with me. So after online dating for several months, I paid her way over here. When I met her in person, I realized the phone didn't do her justice. She was a model. Her skin was always glowing like she just stepped out of a dream. Maybe her beauty stigmatized me, but she seemed like an amazing, caring woman. She was independent without children and never really had a serious relationship before. She was well educated and wanted to see new places before either of us knew it. She had been living with me for a while. I loved having her there every morning and night. I went off to work, and she took care of the house. She started a vegetable garden and took over grocery shopping. She cooked her country specialties for me every day. Our happy little life together was thrown a curveball when we were given 90 days to get married and arrange her citizenship papers. That wasn't very much time, but I hardly hesitated for one moment to marry her. I never wanted her to leave. She used her time as a homemaker to make my life more meaningful. I looked forward to coming home to her every day to eat, talk, and make love in our beautiful home. Before her citizenship was brought to question, she told me she wanted to work a part-time job, since she also had things to do around the house. I arranged for a gardener to start working with us as soon as we returned from our honeymoon. That way she wouldn't have to worry about keeping the vegetable garden free of pests or mowing the lawn. Before I met her, I was usually the one to mow the lawn, but now I just wanted to spend time with my gorgeous wife. It seemed fate was smiling upon me. The gardener got to work planting and caring for flowers, vegetables, and fruits. At least once a week, he would bring my wife a beautiful bouquet of flowers or prepare her a fruit basket. I knew he was doing this for her, but I didn't realize he was romanticizing her. As I understood it, these gestures of kindness were to make the missus happy on behalf of the man paying the bills and gardener's wages. I walked in on them one day when I got home from work. He was helping her in the kitchen with dinner, and I just happened to see his arm around her waist. It was in a moment where he was scooching by in the tight space between the counter and the island. Still, it wasn't that tight. He didn't have to be up against her in order to get through. He just wanted to feel her. When he saw me, his expression was that of fear. He might have needed to change his pants. I didn't waste any time. I asked him why I just saw him touching my wife. She gasped and spun around. She told me to hush, that I didn't need to worry. I just walked in at an awkward moment. There was nothing going on between them and dinner was almost ready. So she suggested I change into something more comfortable and forget about it. She was so assertive and charming by how she responded to the situation. It was hard for me to do anything except what she suggested. Still, my gut told me something was up. I secretly installed security cameras. Of course, they were more expensive because they were like spy cameras. I waited a few weeks before checking them. From my perspective, my wife was innocent and acted completely normal around me. I was in my office when I looked through the footage until I found the most startling thing I ever saw. My wife with the gardener on top of her on the living room couch. She was cheating on me less than a month after our honeymoon. I let out a gasp and started crying. My hands trembled as I called her. She answered breathlessly but elegantly. She asked me if I was on my way home yet because she couldn't wait for me to try what she made for dinner. I told her I just checked the security camera footage and she needed to start packing. I also told her that I saw her having intimate with the gardener and she could kiss her citizenship papers goodbye. With tears flowing and a thick accent, she tried telling me what happened in the living room was nothing. Then she asked how I saw them. I told her nothing she had to say mattered. Our time playing house was over because it was clear she didn't want to do it for real. I told her to start packing and be ready to board a plane back home without me willing to sign her papers. She only had two choices. She could stay in my house without permission until she gets deported or willingly leave with my help. It took some persuasion and threats, but she got into my car with all her stuff and I put her on the next plane out of the US. I filed for an annulment. So it was as if our marriage never happened. I was the first American man she ever met. She married me and cheated with the second American man she met. Wow, what a senseless, expensive mistake that cost you both. The wonderful American marriage she so desperately wanted wasn't as easy as sleeping with the next man. She obviously had no self-control or common sense. She had goals and presented herself as a smart woman, but that only lasted as long as her self-control. I'm so sorry. You were tricked into loving this woman,